Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Brooke Trometer, and today we are here with Nancy Garfinkle. Nancy isn't just a productivity coach, she is a transformation catalyst with decades of operational experience and a deeply personal reinvention journey. She helps women reclaim their time, energy, and identity. So, for those who are new to you, who are you and what are you doing?
So I am Nancy Garfinkle, also known as the No BS coach, because I am a very straight shooter. I was a healthcare leader for over 36 years in operations, and I led large teams and big projects. And I took a lot of what I used in leading those teams and have turned it into my own course and my own methods because what I noticed in solo female entrepreneurs was that a lot of people in these various coaching programs I'd be on would say, and this started when I started my real estate investing. I would hear people say, well, just time block. And people would say, well, time blocking doesn't work for me. Or they'd show a time blocking and it would be 8 hours. Every hour was blocked for something. That's not time
Hmm.
blocking. That's busy.
Yeah.
And people, someone actually said to me, you can't write a business plan for real estate investing. And I was like, well, that's nonsense. If you don't have a roadmap, how do you know where you're going? You need a set of directions. So you need to prioritize your goals and you need to map out what it's going to take to get there. And you need a way to measure how you're making it to your goals. So I basically took things I'd been exposed to in corporate healthcare and reworked them into my own program. When you think about it, I'm a numbers nerd.
Hmm.
So there are over 800,000 books on time management and productivity.
Holy cow.
Amazon sells 80,000 titles. Now, I haven't read all 80,000, okay? But I have read a lot of the gurus, and about 93% of those books are also written by men.
Mm.
And for people more or less in the 9 to 5 workspace, I would say. And so I have taken several of the biggest gurus' methods, interpreted them for myself, because everything I teach, I used. I either tried or used. And I've, kind of assimilated it into a program that is um, kind of boutique. It's personalized, even though it's group coaching. I work with each lady to figure out what system, what methods work best for them in helping them prioritize things, helping them visualize things, helping them get things done. And so we start with a long term vision.
Mhm.
We narrow it down to, say, 3 years. And then from that, we reverse engineer to get to what are your most important priorities now that are going to move the needle forward and get you closer to your goals. And from that, we work in what I call 12-week game plans. And we take two goals, maybe three. When you first start working on it, I'd say you pick two goals. You pick a personal and a business.
Mhm.
And you figure out the tactics that it's going to take. And so from there, what's happening is because you're figuring out the tactics and you're saying, okay, so I need to make 10 sales calls a week. That's going to take me 3 hours. How am I going to do that? Am I going to do it in one block? Am I going to do it in 2 blocks or 3 blocks? And you're going to pre-schedule that onto your calendar. So your time blocking and your weekly plan are being made for you. And you're not scrambling every Sunday to say, what do I have to do this week?
Mm.
And you're going to track them, right?
Mhm.
And so it just becomes baked in to your calendar what has to get done. And then at the end of the week, you're going to look back and reflect and say, what worked this week?
Mm.
Did my blocks work? Did I have interruptions? And you're going to go from there. So we work to customize it because not everybody, I tend to have time blindness. When I get into something that I am very involved in, even though I typically block 3 hours on my calendar for deep work
Mhm.
versus other phone calls. I block, 40 minutes and I'll make phone calls for 40 minutes
Right.
before I say, well, phone calls for the
Right.
day. Um, But so I typically block 3 hours, but if I am in creator mode, I totally lose track
Oh, I
of
get
time
that. I have to use timers. Like, if I know that
unless
I'm
I
gonna
need
be
to
giving
choose.
myself so much time on something, I have to set a
Right,
timer.
right,
Otherwise, I'm gonna find that I'm, like, into it, and
right,
then I
right,
go and I pop up for air, and it's, like, 4 hours
right,
later.
right. You forget until you have to go to the bathroom or the dog
Yeah,
bothers you.
exactly.
Um, so that's really how my course works. And it is a 13-week program. And the reason it's 13 weeks is that after you learn everything, and you may or may not have executed in the first 12 weeks because you're learning the systems and figuring out what works for you, but you're learning a lot. That 13th week, we celebrate the wins, we reflect, and we plan the next 12 weeks for you so that when you're not with me, if you don't join my accountability club, then you at least you've learned the tools,
Mhm,
you have access to them forever,
mhm.
and you can move forward and you execute on what you've learned while refining it.
I love that. Yeah, so many of them that I see, it's like, "Okay, you're here, this is what you're doing. Okay, it's done, it's over. There you go."
No, I have to
And
launch you
yeah,
to the next
yeah,
thing.
I love
But also because accountability is such a key part of this, and when I say accountability in the corporate world, accountability wherever I've been
Mhm,
has always been blame.
mhm.
I'll come to a meeting and say, "You need to be accountable for this." And what they really mean is, "Well, I wanna know that when it doesn't get done, I can point a finger at you."
Right.
And that's horrible,
Yeah, that's
right?
terrible. That's not a good, concept for growth.
I've worked in a lot of toxic
Yeah.
environments, along the way. And so what I teach is self-accountability,
Mhm.
okay? And the reason you come into a space, a container to talk about accountability is because you do need a sounding board, especially when you're a solopreneur, but you're going to show up and you're going to say, well, I was supposed to make 20 sales calls this week. I only made 8. And the person on the other end isn't going to say bad you. They're going to say, well, what got in your way?
Mhm.
Let's unpack this a little. So I teach people how to be a good accountability partner
I love that.
by teaching you how to almost mini coach your accountability partner so that you bring out the best in people.
Mhm.
Um, and that way, everybody is moving forward.
Mhm. No, I definitely love that. What kind of so you said you were in corporate healthcare, right? And,
Yes.
what kind of finally made you say, "I'm too old for this BS," and walk away from the corporate healthcare and just, like, start this
Okay.
whole new venture for yourself?
So when I turned 50, I'm a lot older than that now. When I was 60, I'm 63. When I turned 50, I sat in my office thinking, is this all there is? Am I going to be doing the same thing for the next, 25 years? Because I just believe in working.
Mhm.
Okay. If you don't work, you shrivel up, I think. And the truth is, if I don't have the money to travel the world constantly, I may as well be working because I always had enough vacation time and other kinds of time that I could travel as much as I could afford to. Um, and so at that point, I was a manager for a phenomenal group of surgeons who really valued me. It really was one of my best jobs.
Mhm.
But I wanted more. I wanted the title. I wanted more money. So I kept climbing. And the truth is, I actually didn't like being a director or senior director. I missed the connection with the physicians and my staff on the ground.
Mhm.
And then I got fired more than once, and was told I wasn't director material, so who the heck to that senior vice president at a prestigious institution, but in any event, and then COVID happened, and I had just gotten a new job before COVID. I'd been recruited away from a very comfortable job, again, as a senior director, um, and I had a lot of practices. I was a medical practice
Mhm.
leader, and because it was a surgical practice, the ORs was shut down. Well, I was brand new. It's easier to get rid of a senior director than 4 medical assistants. So who are you gonna let go of,
Yeah.
right? It's also easy. You put a lot more effort into training those, trust me. The practice itself put more effort into training those medical assistants than they did into training me.
Mm.
I came trained, but to learn the specifics of a specific medical practice, it's not easy. And so I got let go and I was devastated. I was ashamed, I was devastated, and the world shut down and no one in New York was hiring. So I decided it was time to leave New York and I was going to come to North Carolina. Well, while I was in North Carolina, a headhunter found me and offered me what I thought was the ideal job in Delaware. And so I packed and went in the middle of COVID. And at first, everything was great. My boss kept saying to me, "Oh, you're the greatest thing I ever did. I would hire you again." Fast forward 2 years, a lot of stuff, different things happened. I broke my leg. I was out for half the time I was employed there.
Oh,
Politics of the place changed. And I missed a deadline because I was sick, really sick. And my boss I had noticed a change in her in the past 6 months.
mm-hmm.
I had noticed that she didn't do well under pressure. She didn't get with the other vice president. And she called me in for one of those crucial conversations. And I didn't get fired, but she just harped on things. And she was the most unprofessional woman in the world. This woman I admired and respected. She imitated me. She made fun of me. She picked on everything I had done for 2.5 years or over 2 years. And at the end of the 45 minutes, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. I am a crier. At the end of 45 minutes, I can't, my brain did not engage before my mouth. I needed that 90-second delay to catch up. And I stood up, and as I was walking past her desk, I turned and I just said, "I'm 61 years old. I just don't need this bullshit anymore. I quit."
Mm-hmm.
It was not thought out. I mean, I've been looking for the job. It
Right.
was not thought out. It was not planned. I did not have a plan. I did not have, I know people who talk about exiting the corporate, the corporate world and they work for a year and builds up their savings and they have a new business on the. I was just starting to invest in real estate, but I'd had it up to here and I just thought, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too
Yeah.
old. I walked out and 20 minutes later, I had no access to the computer.
My.
So that started my real estate investing journey, which was bumpy to say the least. I lost money. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way. I'm good to be a lender,
Huh?
make money that way. Tenants and toilets are not for me. But along the way, listening to all these people, I realized that people just didn't know how to do these things.
Mm,
Women just either they had not worked. I mean, obviously, some of the women were excellent at this,
mhm.
but many women either had not had careers and had managed families, which, yes, there's time management there, but it's different
Yeah.
than working
Yep.
on your business.
Yep.
And a lot of people confuse a to do list with goals. And your action plan for achieving your goals is not your to do list.
Mhm.
And my program really delineates between that and makes that crystal clear. And again, it goes back to that you're taking those goals and figuring out, you're focusing just on two or three at a time, right? You're mapping out your plan, and that calendarizes your commitments to your goals.
Right. Right.
And then your to do list are things like go grocery shopping, pick up the dry cleaning, walk the dog, take the kids to school, do the laundry, all that stuff.
Right. Right.
That's your to-do list, not my 20 phone calls. That is on my calendar. And when I say time blocking, when I was in healthcare, the managers I worked with at my last job in particular would say, "Well, I time block." "Oh, do you? Let me see your calendar."
Mhm.
It was blocked again, all 8 hours. And I'm like, and it was all meetings or whatever. I'm like, where is your work time? Where is your time to work on your projects so that every week when we meet, you can tell me you've made progress? I don't have time for that because they didn't do it. They didn't know how to do it, right? They were always busy putting out fires.
Right.
They had trouble putting the systems in place to not have to put out fires, right?
Mm,
And so even though we had standard operating procedures, they didn't how to a lot of them couldn't put them into
right.
effect. And so you don't time block your whole schedule.
Mm,
You time block 60% of your schedule because you need time to live life. You need time
right.
for what you consider your non-negotiables.
Mhm.
To get up and go to the gym and spend an hour journaling and those things. Well, that takes up time.
Mhm.
Again, maybe not on your to-do list, but those are the things in your head. This is my morning routine, right? I have a friend who gets up at 4:30 in the morning. God bless her. and she is at the gym. She is working. She's in real estate, but she's also a nutrition and health coach
Mm,
and
okay.
trainer. So it tracks. Okay. Me personally, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning for over 25 years to commute from Long Island to New York.
Mhm.
I'm not a member of the 5 a.m. club anymore.
No,
I have
blame me.
anxiety to get things done. But the truth is, I'm okay starting my day, getting up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I work, 9 to 8 or whatever.
Mhm.
And, so, you know, that's how in my mind, you time block. But you also have to remember to schedule time for fun.
Mhm.
And in my system, I encourage people, they may not be able to start out with it, but to make sure you have a 3-hour block that I call the fun block.
Mhm.
And that's not going to a networking event. Networking is part of work.
Mm,
That is either your hobbies, socializing with friends in a non work way, like do not talk about work.
right.
So that because you need something to refill your soul,
Yep. Yeah.
you have to find ways. And for some people, it's exercise. To me, exercise is just part of what I have to do. I don't do it, but when I do it, it's part of what I have to do to keep my energy going and whatnot. But I mean, like truly the creative side of you. Do you have hobbies?
Mm.
When I first started my own businesses, I used to paint. And one day I said, I haven't painted in over a year. Someone said to me, then you need to take your fun block and make it, I was explaining my program to them and they said, well, then your fun block of the next week needs to be, and it was. And I took out all the paints and I'm not good at it. I'm actually, I just enjoy it. Nobody ever sees what I paint.
It's all for you anyway, right? I mean,
Sometimes I scrape it, right into I just scrape the canvas. But, no, so you need to find ways also in all of that to relax, blow off steam, whatever it is. Like, I love gardening. I
mhm.
don't garden much anymore because I have an apartment, but I grow succulents. And
Okay.
I know that for me, something that's very relaxing that I try to fit in, besides watering the plants and fussing with them and talking to them, because I am that kind of person, every few weeks something needs repotting. And I like, even though I wear gloves, I like getting my fingers in the dirt.
Right. Yeah.
There's something about the dirt, that's grounding.
Grounding. Yeah.
And so people need that in their life too. And so that's really, the core of my program, because the other thing I found in real estate, and I did it too, was that there are people who think, well, I just need to learn a little bit more before I can pull the trigger and execute.
Mhm.
I need to take one more course. Or there are the people who, depending upon in real estate, there are so many niches you can go into
Mhm.
that I saw people going all over the place, taking course after course. They took one course that was on general real estate investing. Then they took one on short-term rentals. Then they took one on long-term rentals. Then I took a multifamily. How many courses you going to buy, right? And then you say, well, besides that, what else do I need to learn about? And so there were serial learners, there were serial course buyers, and they never pulled the trigger. They're just spending all this money going from thing to thing. And even when in real estate you learn, I know one woman who she was another person who was my inspiration for this.
Mhm.
She went from thing to thing, like, okay, she's investing in real estate. Now she's investing in oil and gas. Now she's doing something else. Pick a lane.
Yeah.
If you don't pick a lane, you can't succeed in anything.
Do you think that there's a misconception with people that are these serial learners, serial course buyers, things like that, that somehow they're going to just learn it all?
Think that people think they have to learn it all before they take action, but I believe in messy action, progress over perfection. I know that's a really common saying these days, but if you take messy action, you'll make a mistake or two along the way. And, it could cost you money depending upon the industry you're in, but you can recover.
I think there's some parallels with this and people that, they go to college and they go to college, they get this degree, they've taken all these courses in it, in this, and then they come out and they start to work in the field and they realize that everything they learned in the courses, it worked theoretically, but in practical application, it doesn't. And then so you can take all the courses you want, but you're still going to end up messy and learning from your mistakes. You may as well go ahead and just kind of like jump in and
Learn by
do it.
doing. My opinion, you learn by doing.
Mhm.
It's great. Like you said, it's really good to know the theories. You can read all the books on time management you want. And if you'll notice, every book gives you one way of doing things.
Mhm.
Okay. Every author has one way. This is their system.
Right.
Uh, I don't have a book yet, but I will tell you that everyone's personality is different and everyone needs slightly different things. So that's why I give options in my course. And although it's group coaching, I do offer people 2 one-on-one calls so that at whatever point they want, they can reach out to me to say, I'm stuck and this isn't making sense.
Right.
The other thing I do at the beginning of the course is I develop 2 tools. One is called readiness for execution, right? So I give them a little quiz and it's on a Likert scale, the 1 to 10 kind of scale. And they rate themselves and they come up with where are they? Where they are they in their readiness to execute? Are they so disorganized that there's no way they're ever going to execute? Or are they really great already at doing some stuff and need some fine tuning? And that helps me direct them where in the course I can help them the most. And the other thing I do is I give them a short assessment to understand their productivity style.
Mhm.
Are they a visionary? Are they someone who is more of an operations person, right?
Mhm.
And then I also suggest to them who they might consider collaborating with, right? A visionary has the big picture.
Right, right, right. Yep.
They need to focus with someone who's very detail oriented
Oh, I like that.
because that's how they're going to get things done.
Mhm.
So we look at that too. I mean, I can even compare it to the Disney princesses if I had to. Because believe it or not, every Disney princess definitely has something.
Well, their little sidekick kind of usually counters.
They can be, where you're stuck, right? And versus because there are the victim
Yeah.
princesses and there are
Yeah.
like the warrior
Yes.
princesses. So, are you Cinderella or are you Milan?
Yeah.
But that's another discussion. Um, But the other thing I have created in my course is a little sidekick called Decision Debbie.
It's
And
heavy.
Decision Debbie there's 2 versions of her. There's the mini version that you can get outside of the course.
Mhm.
And she just kind of helps you when you have brain fog and can't get things done. You tell her what you would get done, what you want to get done for the day, but maybe you have a migraine.
Mhm.
And she will spit back what she thinks the best way to structure your day is. That's the mini version.
Okay.
The bigger version in the course is actually trained in all the techniques that I use and all the principles of the different gurus that I have drawn from.
Now, is this AI?
Yes, it
Okay,
is an
okay, it's
AI.
AI,
The
okay.
full version is actually a bot. The mini version I would call in like a helper. So my bot is there can be there in the background for you. And if you're stuck on something,
Wow.
you can tell her it was so much fun to create.
I can imagine, yeah.
I didn't think I was capable of doing that, quite frankly, but, again, serial course buyer, really great on myself, and I saw it and I said, "I've gotta be like, I have to be learning." I have really been, working on prompting and different
Mhm.
things, and so, I mean, in an afternoon, I created her, and
I love that.
she's I am one who suffers from migraines, and every
Me
now and
too.
then I will and say, "I have a migraine. This is what was on the list for today. What do you think I should do?" And she will say, first of all, be gentle to yourself.
Aw,
I mean, she's very nice.
yes.
She's very nice, but she's no fluff.
Right.
Or sometimes I'll say, I didn't sleep last night. Like, I just can't focus. Like, these are the things I have to do. How do you think I should salvage my day? And she'll come back with, okay, a nap is self care and self preservation. She
I
does help me justify things
love that.
sometimes. And then she'll say, why don't you take a power nap
Mhm.
or something, set an alarm? Not that I can't think of these things, but she really helps also when you have decision fatigue,
Yeah,
right?
well,
And you can't make a decision anymore.
absolutely. I've been in that situation. I mean, where it's like everybody's been asking you things for weeks and wanting you to make every decision for weeks, and you're just finally like fried and there's nothing else you can do. I also suffer with migraines. And I know when I have been dealing with them, especially, and so like mine are like atypical. So I don't get like the headache part of it. I get all of these other chaotic
Yeah.
symptoms that like affect like the kind of like your nervous system thing. So for me, I do. It's like that brain fog comes in and I can't think, and it's like still like beating your brain up, you're having a little battle up there. And it's like I can't put it together. Like that you have thoughts back here and
Mhm.
you're spitting out almost nonsense to somebody that
Yep.
doesn't get it. And
Right.
having something like that to be able to throw it into and kind of make sense out of yourself and give you a direction, that's
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah. So she was not originally planned as part of the course. She was just something I stumbled upon, honestly, and quite honestly had fun doing. I didn't understand at one point what an AI bot was, like how you make it, and now I could make a bot for whatever you want,
Mhm.
probably. I don't,
Right.
but I could.
Yeah.
But she was just something that I put in to help my students get by because
Fantastic.
it's not, you know what, sometimes you're just making so many decisions as you think about it. When you start something, a new business, I mean, things I never had to think about in healthcare, right? I didn't think about,
Mhm.
well, in some positions, I didn't have to think about a name,
Mhm.
brand, the colors,
Mhm.
the fonts,
Yep.
how I was going to use them, my tone. All that was told to me because I always worked for someone.
Yep.
And so when you start your own company and you're a solopreneur, there are so many things, and you are typically by yourself to begin with. You have no money. You're bootstrapping a business unless you have another business that can help you fund that
Right.
business.
Right.
And so you are your marketing, your PR, your social media, your content,
Mhm.
and content in terms of, let's say you're a coach or whatever, your content in terms of building your course, but you're also content in terms of promoting your course
Mm.
and your own IT department. And that's just a whole nother thing, entrepreneurs don't think about when they're doing something in coaching or whatever it is, digital creators, building a list.
Mhm.
I have a course for that too, but that's another story. I'm a very good creator.
Yeah.
Idea comes up, I can outline it real quick and execute,
Mhm.
particularly if I've done it. So I execute well because I document everything I do
Mhm.
in AI, truthfully, but I humanize all of it.
Mhm.
AI doesn't
Right.
write for me. AI helps me, uh,
Amplifies you.
yeah. So it will take and like potentially organize my thoughts.
Mhm.
It'll do my research for me much faster than I can do my research.
Right.
And so I also think it's important in learning to execute faster using all the tools that are available to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, otherwise you're
that
gonna drown.
right, that's why I have invested time into learning AI. And I do give my students, some along the way various prompts that may help them to see how to use that.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, everything I teach, I've either tried and it has or hasn't worked for me,
Mhm.
or I currently use. Okay. So, I have a 10-year vision.
Mhm.
I narrowed it down to 3 years and I attacked the goals. I have my business mapped out, right? Has it changed? It absolutely has because I pivoted.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I think resilience is really important, right? I am nothing if not resilient over the years. I knocked down more times than I can tell you, but I always come back up, right? I gave a talk the other day about resilience and the power of the pivot at a
Mhm.
women's networking group. And what I said is you don't bounce back, you bounce forward,
Mhm.
right? Whenever you come back, you want to go further than you had been when they knocked you down. And, the truth is that every time, whether I got fired or whatever, I had a pivot because real estate was, like I said, tenants and toilets are not for me.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
I've had to pivot and I go, farther. So I've crossed a few things off my business plan, right? I no longer have, acquire, 20 multifamily buildings in the next three
Right,
years.
right, right.
Instead it's been, how many students I can enroll in my courses and becoming a keynote speaker,
Mhm.
speaking to people.
Do you think that a lot of your students or people in general out there that it's like they feel that if they make like that 3-year plan, that 5-year plan, whatever it is, that they're just locked into it at that point?
I do think people think that. And, that's why there's the delete button on your computer.
Yeah. And I think in my experience with people and with my own clients and things like that, it's like they're almost afraid to make a decision or to make like a commitment of going one way or another because it's like, okay, I made this decision. Now I'm stuck with it. I have to maintain it. And it's,
Yeah. Well, to that, I would say that, as you travel down any road, there's always an alternate route, right?
yeah,
So there's always that fork in the road. And when you look at something making sense to me, and even in my 12-week plan, as I teach you how you develop the tactics, right? You do what's called a mind map, right? You take your goal and you figure out what's going to be, and then you figure out to measure. And the reason you measure is because a tactic may not work.
right,
You may have to tweak it. And that's okay. Insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
right, right.
So the whole point is that you change, you grow, things become less interesting. My theory, I always change jobs. I had an attention span of about 5 years in a job
Mm-hmm.
before I got bored
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason.
Right.
And my theory was always you have to enjoy what you're doing for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whether you're working for yourself or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was, someone once said to me a long time ago, you are the only person I know who like looks forward to getting up and going to work. And I said, well, I really like my job
Mm-hmm.
working in the clinics at Mount Sinai at the time. Okay. I was an assistant director.
Right.
I really enjoyed what I was doing, right? I was bringing healthcare to people who really couldn't afford healthcare. I was improving the system for them,
Mhm.
and it felt meaningful to me.
Right.
But when your work loses that meaning, it's time to pivot.
Right.
And if you don't, you know, it comes down to understanding what's your superpower and what's your zone of genius. Okay? Your superpower is the overarching quality.
Mm-hmm.
Your zone of genius is like what comes naturally to you as well. Okay. So resilience. I've been knocked down, like I said, I've been knocked down so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Muscle has been stronger because I'm not the kind of person to go cry in a corner.
So do you think that's
You
your
know,
superpower?
yeah, I'm just going to keep going. You cannot stop me. You can try to insult me,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to dissuade me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to find what when my daughter was younger, long before anybody else, my mantra to her was, "We'll figure it out. We'll make it work."
Mm-hmm.
And long before anybody else was saying everything is figure outable,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that to her. My daughter's 32. When she was 5, I was telling her that. I was a single mom once she was 5, and everything was figure outable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's always a way to make it work.
Right.
And if not, you pivot, right? Now, zone of genius, and the reason I can help people is because I'm very good at recognizing patterns and things. If someone gives me an idea or tells me about their business, I can tell them how to turn it into a coaching program. It's a strange thing that has happened to me over the past year. I have a friend that does this neurographic drawing,
Mm-hmm.
and conducts, she does workshops around town.
Right.
And I said to her, you could turn this into an online course in 2 different ways. And she's like, really? I'm like, oh yeah. And it could be sold on Evergreen. And I'm like, if you ever wanna, like, do it, I'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a fee,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'll help
yeah,
you.
absolutely, yeah.
Um, and it won't take more than 4 or 5 hours for me to show you how to map it all out and do it. It's not that hard. So, when you develop your resilience, you develop it by learning to pivot. And the pivot is with the fork in the road, right?
Right.
You have choice to make when things don't go right. And you have to know when to give up on something,
Mhm.
for one, and you have to know when to push harder. and to get the right resources. Now, that's not saying buy every course out there
Right.
and never execute. It's saying get the right course, choose the right mentor.
Right. Right.
I go live. I have a private Facebook group called the Productivity Place,
Mhm.
and I go live on there once a week talking about, I call it quick kicks, like a
Mhm.
quick kick dance. And I talk every week some small bite. I only go live for 10 or 15 minutes. It's not really interactive. I mean, people are on, but I talk. It's not like a Zoom.
Right.
And in fact, today, when I go live at 2:30 is the time I tend to go live. I'm talking about how to choose a mentor or a coaching program
Mhm.
because A, I've bought a lot of them.
Mhm.
B, I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of money on them
Right.
and talking tens of thousands of dollars
Mhm.
because, a coaching program could go from $27 to $100,000 or more,
Right.
depending on who you are and what phase you're in. And so I think it's really important that people, and more expensive isn't always better.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's what I'm going live on today, how to choose a mentor, what to look for, and what the red flags are.
Mhm.
2 weeks ago, I talked about incompletions, what happens when you not when you pivot, but when you don't do what you say you're gonna do,
Mm.
when you don't follow through. What happens? What does that effect have on the people you were supposed to follow through for? But more importantly, what effect does it have on you?
Right.
And so these are all things I go into deeper in my course Execution Wins.
Mhm.
And actually, I'm actually doing something called the end of the year, I'm going to do something called Execution Wins Express.
Okay.
And Execution Wins Express is like accountability on steroids.
Okay.
It is a 3-week program
Ooh.
where I teach you the most important parts of my program. But instead of giving you videos to watch,
Mhm.
I teach it to you in nine 90-minute sessions
Okay.
live, 3 days a week for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And you get it live with me. You have homework. You don't show in either event. If you don't show up to one of my coaching calls, a group call, or this, well, the Express is still group, I'm going to text you or call you and say, where were you today?
Yeah.
Because I'm teaching you accountability.
Yes. Show up.
You have to show up for yourself before you can show up for other people. And if you can't keep a promise to yourself, how can you keep a promise to other people? And as women, we tend to do more for other people, right? You'll probably keep a promise to your child or your spouse
Mhm.
or commitment at work sooner than you'll keep a commitment to yourself. But if you don't keep a commitment to yourself, what does that do to you psychologically? And I'm not a therapist.
Right.
But think about it. Then you start to feel like, oh, I'm a failure. No, you're not a failure. You just have so many demands on you. And so learning to balance your time and where to give your effort and learning the value of keeping a commitment to yourself is so important because that builds your confidence,
Mhm.
another
Right.
muscle.
Right.
Okay. And it builds your self worth. And you need to do that to succeed, especially as a businesswoman.
Right.
If you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. When you talk about your time blocking and you talk about like fun blocks, do you think that as women and mothers and, all of this, that in some way we have to kind of relearn how to have joy?
I do. And I think it's joy, making sure that when you're spending, say, time with your children or your family, like I said, my daughter's grown, but I mean, I was talking to my younger sister yesterday and she's already a grandma and her 18-month-old grandson was with her. And I got so much joy just listening to him babble in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. It was like one of the best phone calls I've had with my sister. I mean, we talked about all sorts of things and whatnot. But every time he calls her, he never calls her the same thing twice. Mom,
Mhm.
mommy, mama, mima, mim.
Right, right, right.
And I cracked up every time, and everything he said, was just I mean, it was, and you find joy in the little things, but you have to find joy, and you also have to make, a fun block can be, I haven't had a haircut in I don't know how long, and I'm at my daughter's week.
Right.
Just don't make time for it, right? It's not important to me. I wear my hair in a ponytail half the time because I'm home working by myself. And so, self-care is not selfish. I know that's a cliche, but as women, you have to make time for that.
Yeah.
And I know when my daughter was growing up, I'm a nail biter, but I used to, have fake nails.
Hmm.
Every 2 weeks like clockwork, I went to that salon. I had a standing appointment for my nails because it was important to me because it was my time. Nobody bothered me.
Yeah.
I could sit and not talk to and I didn't even think it's almost meditative,
Hmm.
you know?
Totally see that.
Or, after my daughter went to college and I got a dog and, everybody's walking, walking, and I used to make sure I hit my 10,000 steps.
Hmm.
And it didn't matter what was going on. Even when my daughter lived with me again after college, I was like, I'm sorry, but I haven't hit my 10,000 steps. I must go walking.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so sometimes as a woman, you have to be a little selfish that way because
Yeah.
you have to pour into yourself
Yeah.
before you can pour into other people.
Totally.
And it really all does get back to how do you spend your time? How do you allocate your time? And how do you work on your goals for your business or your personal goals?
Right.
And, I've lost 75 pounds in the last year and a
That's
half.
amazing.
Thank you. And I have a lot more to go. But one of the things that's non-negotiable for me is, Sunday morning grocery shopping and meal prepping. And I don't pre-cook my meals, but I kind of pre-prepare the vegetables. I make sure the
Mm.
vegetables are cleaned and washed and ready, used, and, that I have written out meals for the week.
Hmm.
I may Tuesday with Thursday, but my
Right.
stuff
They're
is
there.
done. I take the time, even though I live by myself, I take the time to plan that.
Right.
And that's 3 hours worth of time on a Sunday morning. It's pretty set in stone.
Hmm.
I'm at or by a certain time, I come home, I do the same thing every week because how you spend your time, it needs to be intentional.
Mm.
I really do believe that, you set an intention for the day, whatever it is, whether it's I'm going to eat healthy today, I'm going to get more things done. And it all ties back into, again, how do you plan your time?
Right.
How do you use time? Time is the one limited quantity that we do not get back.
You can't get more of it.
You can't. When I was getting divorced, and I was negotiating my divorce settlement. All I wanted was time with my daughter. We weren't rich or anything, but I didn't really care about the money.
Right.
My ex-husband wanted certain stocks because we had a small stock
Hmm.
portfolio. I traded him for instead of alternating Thanksgivings, I gave him what he wanted from the stock portfolio, and I got every single Thanksgiving with my
Yeah.
daughter.
I love
I'm
that.
sure there are women out there who are gonna say that's selfish. No,
Hmm.
it's not selfish. It's building traditions. It let me give my daughter a sense of what the traditions were, and it was the time. And we used a mediator, and the mediator had said to me, "Are you sure you want to let go of that money?" And my attitude to him was, "I can always earn more money,
I did the same thing during mine.
but I cannot get more time." And my daughter was only 5. I said, I only have like 13 more of every holiday before she's out on her own.
Exactly.
And who knows? So I need to make the most. I said, and if money's more important to him than time with his kid, I'm
I don't
okay
have
with that.
Yeah, you're totally fine with that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, my daughter does, I'm sure she'll love that I'm saying this on the podcast. Really, she doesn't have a relationship with him,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, but she has great memories of everything we've done for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving
And
and
that's
any other
priceless.
holiday.
That's priceless.
So,
Absolutely
yeah,
priceless.
yeah.
Well,
So,
I want to get into one thing that we talked about a little bit before we have to wrap up here. And one of
absolutely.
that is your Ignite 2026.
Yeah.
Tell me about that and what are you hoping that it feels like?
So I created Ignite 2026. It is going to be a series of online summits free to attend for women. I decided to create my own stage.
Hmm.
I have discovered that in the world of coaching, you frequently have to pay to be on stage. And sometimes you have to pay a lot of money to be on stage. And there are a lot of coaches who are just at the beginning. And some people do this for free, but there are costs involved. And, you know,
Right.
so this is why I charge a nominal fee for someone to speak for 30 or 45 minutes. The first one is called Ignite 2026, Reset and Thrive. It will be December 4th to 5th. And the goal is to figure things out for next year: health, wealth, and personal growth. And it'll be about 10 speakers plus my keynote and myself.
Mhm.
I already have 4 speakers lined up. I have my keynote lined up. I even have someone who does custom music um,
Amazing.
on on like accountability and self-care. I met her at a networking event, and I was just like, when she talked, I was like, "Can you provide music for the fillers?" And
Mhm.
she was like, "Oh, God, yes."
That's awesome.
And so my goal here is twofold. It's to have women get inspiration. And if they need a coach, maybe they're going to find a coach. But it's to create that stage for women because most speakers, believe it or not, are men.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether it's a coach or it's a keynote speaker, the kind that get paid, which
Mhm.
um, they're men.
Right.
You know, one of my mentors says that it's male, pale, and stale, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's talking, and so I want to create a stage for newer coaches to be able to get out there. That's affordable.
Mhm.
Um, to get out there to expand their reach, expand their visibility. Because how do you grow as a coach? Right? You need visibility. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't have a content or a message issue. I have a visibility issue, right? I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook and yeah, great. And I have a couple of hundred people in my productivity place Facebook group.
Mhm.
Great. But more people need to know about me. I'm creating 2 movements, right? Women need to learn to own their time and how to use it to make real progress and become successful business owners.
Mhm.
But I'm creating a movement for new speakers to get their
Right.
voice out there.
I love that.
And so along the way for 2026, there's Reset and Thrive to kick it off.
Mhm.
Maybe a second Reset and Thrive for people who were too busy in December
Right.
to come. It may either be a replay or new. I haven't decided. And my plan is to have Ignite 2026 by niche or sector, right?
Mhm.
Ignite 2026 for business women. Ignite 2026 for
I love
coaches,
that.
right? Even coaches need coaches.
Yeah.
We're going, or how to market their business
Mhm.
because I know so many real estate investors and so many real estate investing coaches in every niche. I do plan to do one on real estate investing.
Right.
And because for the coaches, it's a great way to expand their reach,
Mhm.
but more women should know about how to make money investing in real estate.
Right.
And there are a lot of different ways to make money in real estate, whether you are active or passive. I personally prefer the passive. But so for me, Ignite 2026 is about, you know, empowering women to learn to find their best self in whatever avenue they are in whatever season of life, and to align themselves with what their needs are.
Mhm.
But it is also to give people like myself who are newer coaches a stage and to grow together,
Mhm.
to expand our reach, grow our email
I love
lists,
that.
grow our reach and just tell more women what we're out there. I do a lot of networking,
Mhm.
online and in person. I have recently gotten really back into networking in person.
Mhm.
And it has sparked something in me
Mhm.
to just, I know I talk a lot, but I'm actually an introvert. I'll be exhausted tonight and,
Yeah.
I need to go to sleep at
Yeah.
8 o'clock. But going to live events and meeting all these other wonderful, wonderful businesswomen, coaches, not coaches. I mean, just all types of travel agents. I mean, who thinks of travel, right? Who uses a travel agent anymore? But there are a lot of benefits I've
Yeah.
decided to using a travel agent, even in
Yeah.
today's day and age. And
Absolutely.
so, it's amazing. And so I'm a good connector.
I love that. I love that.
And I want to help people reach their full potential. I want to help women grow their businesses. I want to get more out of life. At 63, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the thinnest I've been since I gave birth to my daughter,
Right.
and I feel so much more alive.
Mhm.
I know a lot of this sounds so cliche, but
Oh,
it's
it's
not.
true. It's true.
I am just so much happier than I have been in about 10 or 15 years.
That's amazing.
And so, I also want women to realize that just because you turn 40, 50, 60,
Mhm.
it's never too late to start over again.
Right?
And I just keep shifting and pivoting as I need to make my life work for me.
That's amazing. I love that. Now, for you here, what does guess like why do you think that this time management, because I know you're focusing on women, why do you think that it's so different for women and that these other styles and books and all of that, that they don't really work well for that working woman and mother?
Well, I'm gonna borrow from my mentor, Jess Ekstrom,
Hmm.
who says when that the speaker's world is male, pale, and stale. I'm gonna tell you that the world of time management is the same, and I truly believe it was created for most of the things they talk about. Although authors talk to everybody, um, I really do believe because over time, it all started the workforce was men,
Yeah.
right? Women were just secondary. And so over time, while people are trying to evolve it to appeal to everybody, women just have different demands on their time.
Hmm.
If you're a married working mother and you have a child, for instance, in daycare, or your kids at school, they could be a middle school, a high schooler, that child gets sick. Who are they calling?
Mom, 90% of
If
the time,
that child needs to stay home from school or daycare, who
the
culturally
mother.
expects the mother to stay home. So
Absolutely.
how does right? And if you are a self-employed woman a business owner trying to juggle all of this,
Hmm.
how do you still get things done?
Yeah.
And so you need to learn how to have a flexible schedule that you can recover from when one of these whammies is thrown at you.
Right.
Because really think about it, we're still the sandwich generation, right? I mean, I'm a boomer, even though I'm at the other end. And my sister, who's the generation behind that, um, we're the sandwich generation, right? My parents are gone, but we took care of our parents while raising our small children, and that continues. And so when you have all those demands, how do you manage? How do you manage your time? And I don't think as many men are expected to do those same things while still, I mean, look, plenty of women. I know female doctors, lawyers, attorneys,
Right.
executives. I mean, healthcare, a lot of healthcare. I worked with more women in leadership experiences, especially in New York, than I did men probably. But we all had kids. And, when I first started working, I was the only one who didn't have a nanny.
Mhm.
And so I was the mother. My ex-husband and I, when we were married, we used to flip a coin who was going to stay home. And when the coin would fall and one of us would say, no, I can't do it. It got to me. We had to call my mother, who somehow miraculously lived an hour away, but appeared at my front door in 45 minutes.
Isn't it amazing what moms can do?
I have no idea how she's always there for us.
Yeah.
My parents always came to the rescue so that I did not have to be the one who had to call my boss and say, I have to stay home today.
Mhm.
Baby sick.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it's not to say I wasn't a good, caring, invested mother. I
Yeah.
absolutely was.
Yeah.
But, and I can't imagine, I see a lot of younger women or women with middle age, school age children and whatnot who have to really balance their job, or their business in particular is who I focus on, and get things done. And the saying, it takes a village. It takes a village whether you're in a corporate environment or not.
Mhm.
I would have made it through without my village
Right.
in raising my daughter. But so I think learning how to not get derailed, how to have good focus, how to understand the difference between planning to achieve your goals and getting the daily stuff done, the to-do list stuff done, and how to separate those really makes a difference for the small business woman.
Yeah. So what is something that you believe about success that most people might disagree with?
Success is not a straight line. There is no trajectory that goes, success is a bumpy road. Sometimes you take a few steps back to take a few more steps forward.
Mhm.
When people say failure is not an option, failure is going to happen. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to bounce back from that, how to be resilient. And that's why I say you don't bounce back, you bounce forward.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Is there a particular moment, kind of life memory that you feel really fundamentally changed how you see the world in general?
Yeah, when my mother died, I was working for that group of surgeons that were wonderful. And I remember the morning I got the phone call that mom in a coma, they intubated her.
Mm.
And I had to think about whether or not I could leave work,
Oh,
as good as they were to me. And one of the fellows, we were a teaching hospital, walked in and said, he goes, "What's wrong?" And I told him, he goes, "Get out of here." And then someone had to tell me that because I felt such responsibility when my mother was my everything.
yeah,
No one should ever have to do that. But women, I mean, whether you're a ma I don't think a man would have had that same thought process
I would
because it was
agree.
a man who told me to get out of there,
Yeah, I
okay?
agree.
And I think women, because you're always trying to prove yourself and that, you're balancing everything,
Yeah,
I think that was that's what pivoted for me. And shortly after that is when I started job hopping and
right.
thinking there has to be more to this, there has to be more to this. I did make more out of it. And
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think I
I love my life now.
yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point with that, especially with the male doctor, being like, "Hey, no, just leave. You need to go." And that they wouldn't have thought twice about that. Whereas as a woman, it's because you're working twice as hard to prove yourself to the same amount as what men
Mhm.
typically do. Women are also viewed as being more emotional. So if you're leaving for some reason that a man wouldn't think twice on, it's always you're in there. It's like, oh well, they're gonna think I'm just not as emotionally
You j
apt.
you just doubt I
Yeah.
think a lot of times you just doubt yourself about things, and you have to think twice when you're a woman in the corporate world. So, that's sad. Maybe it's changed. I mean, I left the corporate world a little over 2.5 years ago, and it's been a long time since and I'd say after that event,
Hmm.
and my mother died 4 days later, I probably never thought again about leaving work when there was a family emergency.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably never ever questioned it again because I learned from that.
Right.
But the fact that in that moment I had to think about that bothers me to this day.
I can completely understand that. No, it's something you shouldn't have to. Nobody should have to. And it shouldn't matter if you're a man, a woman, young, old, it
Right,
shouldn't matter,
right.
but it is. It's something that's just been kind of ingrained in us.
It has, and maybe it's generational because as a manager, when someone would come to me and say, an hourly employee, My kid's sick, is family first.
Mm.
I always preached family first. It's just in that moment, I probably thought for a good 10 minutes what I should do.
Well,
I mean, it's not like it's an hour,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
be a good 10 minutes, like, as I was saying, "Okay, what would I have, like, how can I do this?
Yeah, yep.
Should I go?" So, yeah, no one should have to do that. No mom should have to do that, no daughter should have to do that.
Mhm.
Um
Well, I think sometimes too, like you're talking about, like, generational, I think there's some generational aspect to it for sure, because different g
Mhm.
generations have
Yes.
taught that there's different things that you give up for work, right?
Mhm.
But I also think that there's a thing as well. I've talked with my daughter, my oldest is 21, and, I've talked with her some, and we have a tendency, I think, as well, coming from certain generations of like, we know it should be family first. We know, and
Mhm.
we're going to tell other people, yes, put your family first, do this first. Or if it's, go therapy, therapy's great. Go to therapy. Everyone should do that. But then when it comes to yourself, you tend to be like, well, no, it's fine when everybody else does it. But if I did it, it would be, it could be I shouldn't do it. Like, I'm going to do differently.
And it also, I mean, some of it does with something like therapy or
Mhm,
self-care, because therapy obviously is an important part of self-care. It gets back to making the time for what matters and prioritizing things. And just as much as you would prioritize hitting $30,000 in sales a month,
mhm,
or whatever, you need to prioritize health and mental health and wellness. And I think that's something that's become more, I don't really coach on burnout. I know
mhm.
people who do.
Right.
I guess the purpose of my program is to avoid the burnout,
Yeah, to not have to have that.
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to manage your time and get to your goals and do it in a way that's like, ah, And then we celebrate your wins, like I said, in that in between week as we plan for the next. So it's all very, there's a cadence to it, right? It's funny. Somebody else said to me the other day, you know how like you get on a coaching call or something and people say, well, or you see on Facebook all the time, what were your wins this week? And people are quiet. Nobody raises their hands.
Mhm.
The truth is that everyone's got wins all the time, no matter how small they are.
Yeah,
So when someone asks what your wins are, everyone's hand should go up and everyone should have something to say because something happened to you today that is a win
I
and you should
totally
celebrate it.
I
And
totally
you should,
agree. Yeah, no, I have a group that I'm involved in, and they do that. So we have meetings like twice a week, and it always starts with, "All right, what's the wins? Let's hear the wins." And sometimes there's people in those groups that are further along in their journey than you are, and they're celebrating this, they landed a $30,000 client, or some big thing that, yeah, that really sounds like a big win. And I know I would always keep my mouth shut, for a while because, I wasn't at the same level with that. And then finally I was like, okay, I had little wins that were inside me.
Mhm,
They just didn't seem as grand. But then I got thinking, I'm like, well, everybody was in that position that I was in, at that
that's
moment
right.
at some point. So I decided, I am. And I'd be like, all right, I'm going to do it. I have a little win. My little win was that I was just like crying to my friend, bawling my eyes out the first half of the day because everything seemed to be falling apart, and got, got my mind straight, went back and ended up booking 3 discovery calls. And I mean, like, and that was the win. I sat there, I did the steps that I was supposed to do to try to realign and get everything back, and then discovery
Exactly.
calls. Now it's all been going well. And I was like, man, everybody's going to sit there and think that's like a stupid win, kind of thing. And but you know what? It wasn't. Like everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that's
It's
fantastic."
huge.
Yes, and it's like you had the
Yes.
breakthrough.
Sometimes the smallest steps at the beginning, because once you gain momentum,
Mhm.
momentum builds momentum.
Yes.
Okay. But it's getting to the momentum, right? It's
Mhm.
getting in consistent,
Getting moving.
sustainable action.
Mhm.
That is the hard part. And that's part of what I teach.
Yeah.
And I also always say to people, don't compare your
Mhm.
beginning to someone else's middle.
Yep.
If someone's a coach and they've been coaching for, even if they just started figuring out their coaching program 8 months ago and you just started now, you cannot compare where they are at 8 months. You're just figuring out what your company name should be called or what your logo is and your
Exactly.
color. And they're saying, I booked 4 new clients today.
Yep.
That's phenomenal for them. But you decided that, pink and blue are going to be your brand colors. And that's a big step in your new identity.
Absolutely. So what would your business look like if the visibility that you wanted just showed up tomorrow? What would that be like for you?
Well, I would probably be enrolling, 10 clients a month into my coaching program.
Mhm.
My summits would be growing
Mhm.
and being, consumed by more people, and people would want to be, be knocking at my door to be speakers. And the last part is my keynote speaking would grow and I would be a sought after keynote speaker
I love that.
because I really do think I have a lot to share with, the audiences that I would like to, women, college students, because I do think college
Yeah.
students could benefit a lot by learning how to prioritize and whatnot.
Mhm.
And, I mean, it would be great.
What as you've been building, and you're in a certain part of your journey, for the ones that have kind of been coming up that are a little behind you in your journey, what what has been one of the most frustrating parts of breaking into this world of coaching and building?
Well, people think coaching sounds very sexy.
Mhm.
Okay. But there's a lot behind the scenes that you don't know about
Mhm.
when you become a coach. You need to build an email list
Mhm.
because how else you going to do it?
Yeah.
There's a whole technology piece that is the bane of my existence. And I have spent if it wasn't for technology, I launched at the very end of August, beginning of September. If it wasn't for technology, I would have launched in April.
Mhm.
But I had to figure out the tech and I had to figure out how to grow an email list and all these different things. And so What I would say is take it slow. Don't worry if you have to take it slow.
Mhm.
Bite-sized pieces. Can do things before you think you're ready because there's never a right time.
Mhm.
There's never a right time. I'm gonna tell you that to launch this. When the suggestion to me was made to create my own stage, I looked at the person and I said, "Are you nuts?"
Yeah.
And she said, "No, you have to do this." And so I said, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And then when I spoke with I was in a group setting the following week and they said I was gonna do it. And I said, no, I don't think so. And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And 5 people on that call said, "I am really interested in that." And 3 of them are confirmed speakers at my first Ignite
Amazing.
Summit.
That is amazing.
I was pushed into completing it, so I didn't have an incompletion. And now in a few short weeks, because this only happened a few weeks ago that
Yeah.
I decided to do this Ignite thing. It was not on the business plan. Okay. It was not. It was not a business plan. It was not written. It's a goal for the next weeks. Honestly, I'm going to execute it in about 8 weeks.
Wow.
So it is an express to the first one.
Mhm.
Um, do it messy. I have no idea what I'm doing planning a summit, but I'm doing it. It doesn't seem to be that difficult.
Well, once you get it done and you do it, you're gonna be like, "Ah, this worked really well. This could have
That's
gone
why
better. I wish that I had had this." So the next one's just gonna be better.
exactly. But that's where although I spent my career in operations, I
Mhm.
was always a visionary
Mm,
thinking this could work. I can tell you how it'll work too.
right.
But I see things. I have the picture for the future. And that's why as soon as I started, I was planning out the first one. I was like, oh my God.
Mhm.
As I started seeing who was interested in speaking in and how they fit into health, wealth, and personal growth, there were people that didn't necessarily fit into that. And I was like, well, these people fit into this category, and these people fit into this category. So this could take me all the way through the year
Yeah.
and then repeat.
Yeah.
Ignite is now, it's not the most unique name for a brand, but Ignite Summits is now my second or third brand.
Yeah.
Have execution wins. I have, my speaking that goes under I've Nancy Garfinkle, the No BS coach,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is my umbrella brand, I
Right?
suppose.
Yeah.
But Ignite is my summits. And at some point, it will lead, I have a feeling, to an amazing in person summit
I think that would be fantastic.
because I love the energy of people being together in a room. I went to a summit last week that was amazing. It was
Mhm.
100 women. The air was electric from start to finish. I want that environment. I want to lead that kind of environment for the people I know and am getting to know
Love that.
because it's truly inspiring.
Mhm.
Make the best connections in person,
Right. I
right?
agree. Totally agree. So, as we start kind of bringing this all around, what is next? Well, I mean, you kind of told us. My question was going to be, what's next for you in the next 90 days? But I guess the summit is
In
going
the
to be
next
it.
90 days, I'm going to an event in Laguna Beach
Fun.
from a company called Million Dollar Moms. And this 3-day event is being filmed for a 6-part docuseries, Million Dollar Moms.
Love that.
So that's going to be amazing. And yeah, what's next is my summit
Hmm.
and the launch of Execution Wins Express.
Love that.
Those 2 things.
Where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of ways. So I am on Instagram as Coach Nancy Garfinkel. I am on Facebook as Nancy Garfinkel, the No BS Coach. And I have a private group, The Productivity Place, where come on into my world and we talk about all things to keep you on track and motivated. And on my website is really easy to remember. It's just nancygarfinkel.com.
That's great. So I say everybody needs to go and talk to you because time management is such an important part that yes, doing it the way
Absolutely.
that you're talking about is so different than how we've been taught in the past. And so a quick few rapid fire questions. What is a book that changed your thinking?
The 12-week year.
The 12-week year. Okay. What is your favorite fun block activity right now?
I like to block out time to go to festivals on the weekends.
Okay. All right.
Festivals.
All right. And what is one bucket list place that you haven't been to yet?
Oh, there's so many, but I wanna go I want to go to an elephant sanctuary in Africa and play with the baby elephants.
I love that. That would be so amazing. I would love to go to Africa. We do have here in Florida, there is an elephant sanctuary here in Florida.
I know. Well, maybe I'll get there, but I somehow feel like it's different when you go to
I
Africa.
totally agree. I totally agree. And if you had one totally free day all day long, how would you spend it?
At the spa.
The spa. I love that. Okay. And now, if we fast forward to kind of the end of your life, all right, and everyone that you have ever impacted kind of forgets any of the things that you've ever taught them or talked to them about, but you could leave one final message that they would remember forever, what would it be?
Be kind to yourself.
Kind to yourself. That's, yeah. Yep. We're hardest on ourselves.
Yes.
So definitely. All right. Well, Nancy, I appreciate you coming on here today and talking about all of this. This has been
Thank
wonderful.
you. I appreciate your having me. This has been delightful.
All right. So everybody go visit Nancy's website. Go sit there and look at her 13-week programs that she has and the Ignite 2026 coming around. And I hope everything works out and that these events go off flawlessly for you.
Great. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you. Okay.
Have a great day.
You too.